Some histories are not forgotten. They are simply waiting. Beneath the placid surface of our everyday world, there are stories that fester in the silence, truths so unsettling they are paved over by time and fear. This is one such truth. It begins not with a bang, but with a whisper. On a crisp autumn morning in Stillwater, Oklahoma, a dispatcher received a call. The line was open for only 7 seconds. The voice that came through was not that of a man or a woman, but of a child. The words frayed by a terror so profound it seemed to choke the speaker. Only 3 words were uttered. "It's in the walls." Then, the hollow void of a dead line. The call was traced to a neat 2-story home on Sycamore Lane. From the outside, it was a postcard of suburban tranquility, but the front door stood ajar, a dark sliver of space that felt less like an invitation and more like a warning. What the officers found inside would dismantle their understanding of evil. There was no overt struggle, no chaotic scene of violence. Instead, a profound, sickening stillness. The air hung heavy with the cloying metallic scent of blood. A trail of dark fluid, soaked deep into the beige carpet, led down the hall. There were no footprints, only a long, continuous smear, as if something heavy had been dragged. In the master bedroom, Eleanor Lockwood lay face down on the rug, still in her nightclothes. In the adjacent room, her daughter, Lily, age 9, was found tucked beneath her comforter, a beloved stuffed owl clutched in her arms. The single devastating blow that ended her life spoke of a brutal, terrifying efficiency. Downstairs, the scene was even more dissonant. Breakfast had been prepared. 2 place settings. Toast, cold in the toaster. A glass of orange juice, half full. The coffee in the pot was still warm, but of Arthur Lockwood, the husband and father, there was no sign. Nor was there any trace of the couple's young son, Leo. The door to the basement was locked from the outside. When they breached it, the smell that rose from the darkness was ancient. Damp soil, rust, and something sweetly organic. There, in the gloom, they found Arthur Lockwood. He was seated cross-legged on the concrete floor, his clothes drenched in blood that forensics would later confirm was not his own. Beside him, 6-year-old Leo sat perfectly still, physically unharmed, his eyes wide and unblinking. Arthur looked up at the officers, his face a mask of serene detachment. He offered his wrists for the handcuffs, a man who had been expecting this moment. His only statement was a quiet, matter-of-fact pronouncement. They were compromised. Leo is the only one who remains pure. At the police station, wrapped in a blanket that swallowed his small frame, Leo Lockwood would not speak. He would not cry. He simply shook, a constant, silent tremor. His pajamas were stained with his mother's and sister's blood, yet his own hands were spotless. Back at the house, the real mystery began to unfold in the basement. There was no murder weapon, no signs of a confrontation, only a single, straight-backed wooden chair positioned in the center of the room. And on the wall behind it, scrawled in what appeared to be red crayon or something else, was a symbol, a crude circle, from which jagged, weeping lines radiated outward like a tear in reality itself. Beneath it, in Arthur's precise handwriting, were the words, "The unmarked may enter, the stained must be returned." It was signed with a single stark letter, A, Act 2. The town of Stillwater tried to forget. The Lockwood name was scrubbed from conversation. Neighbors moved away. The local diner where Eleanor had worked changed its name, but the silence could not erase the boy. Leo Lockwood, passed through a series of foster homes, became a ghost in the system, withdrawn, compliant, and silent. For 10 years, he did not speak of that morning. Then, one night, his foster parents found him awake, drawing on his bedroom wall with a pencil. It was the same symbol from the basement. When they asked him what it was, his reply was chillingly simple. "It's the eye in the water. That's what my father was listening to." This act brought him to the attention of Dr. Eris Thorne, a psychologist specializing in childhood trauma. Leo, now 16, spoke to her in a flat, mechanized monotone, as if reciting a story he had memorized but did not understand. He spoke of the days before the tragedy, of his father nailing towels over the heating vents, of sealing the sink and bathtub drains with a strange, putty-like substance. He claimed his father would read aloud from a Bible whose pages were utterly blank. "He said it used the water to move," Leo whispered, his gaze fixed on a distant point. "The one with no face." Dr. Thorne, a woman of science and reason, felt a profound disquiet. The details Leo provided, the specific placement of the bodies, the pattern of the blood, the location of missing kitchen knives, were never released to the public. He also spoke of his mother's attempted escape, of the phones being dead for weeks, a fact corroborated by records. The most haunting detail was the sound. "The bathtub was running," Leo said, his voice barely audible. "But it didn't sound like water. It sounded like whispering." As he spoke, he walked to the window fogged by condensation and drew the weeping eye symbol with his finger. "That's the door," he said. "It lets it in." A cold realization washed over Dr. Thorne. She had seen that symbol before. Decades earlier, as an intern at a state asylum, she had treated a woman who had drowned her child. The woman, catatonic, would hum a dissonant four-note melody. Behind a loose tile in her room, Dr. Thorne had found that exact symbol scratched into the wall. That woman was later found dead in her sealed room, her lungs filled with fluid she could not have inhaled. Dr. Thorne's attempt to formally link the cases was immediately shut down. Her office was subsequently burglarized. The only items taken were her old notes on that patient. This was not madness. It was a cover-up. Driven by a need for answers, she went to the condemned Lockwood home. Amid the fire-scorched ruins, in the bathroom where Leo said he'd seen the symbol, she found a rusted iron ring bolted to the floor, a hidden well shaft that was not on any blueprint. The air that rose from it was frigid and carried the scent of wet stone and decay. Shining her light down, she saw the symbol carved into the bricks, over and over, descending into the blackness, and from the depths, she heard it, a faint, echoing hum, the same four-note melody. Her research led her to a forgotten history. A breakaway religious sect from the 1890s excommunicated for their aberrant practices. They worshipped not in a church, but around stone baptismal wells. Their hymnal, confiscated by authorities, was filled with four-note songs. On the last page was the weeping eye symbol. This was not psychosis. It was an inheritance, a ritual passed down through generations, and it had chosen Arthur Lockwood as its vessel. And now it was calling to his son. Third. Leo began to change. He would often be found crouched by a floor drain in the institution, his lips moving in a silent whisper. When Dr. Thorne listened closely, she heard it too. A faint tapping, a muffled humming, rising from the depths below the building. The facility, she discovered, was built on the foundation of an old sanatorium. Architectural plans referenced a containment chamber, sealed in 1949. When Leo went missing, he was found sitting at the top of a long sealed stairwell leading down to this very chamber. "He stopped singing," Leo said calmly. "He smelled my mother on me." Dr. Thorne descended into the sub-basement, into a chamber of rot and black mold. A section of the floor had been recently broken open, revealing a narrow brick-lined pit. At the bottom, submerged in dark, oily water, was a figure. Arthur Lockwood. His body was perfectly preserved, his face peaceful, a faint, knowing smile on his lips. There was no wound on his throat. The man they had arrested and who had died in custody was not the man in the pit. That evening, Leo gave Dr. Thorne a drawing. It showed the pit, his father's body, and standing beside it a second figure, a tall, slender man with a face too long, a smile too wide. "He was always under there," Leo whispered. "Dad just let him out for a little while." A full forensic sweep of the Lockwood home revealed its hidden dimensions. Behind the walls, jars filled with preserving alcohol and things, small things, labeled and dated. The history of the land revealed an older evil, a circle of the well, that had made a pact with something that slept beneath the soil. They believed it demanded offerings to stay dormant. The Lockwoods were its latest keepers. Arthur's journal, found hidden inside a wall, spoke of the listener and the fifth eye, a child, always a child, spared to bear witness and continue the cycle. Leo was not a survivor. He was the next chosen vessel. The journal ended with a final entry. "The house is dreaming. It will wake soon, and it will be hungry." Dr. Thorne knew the cycle was not over. The thing from the well wearing Arthur's face or another was still at large. It had been waiting. And in the quiet, watchful silence of Leo Lockwood, she saw not a traumatized child, but a doorway. The story of the Lockwoods was not a closed case. It was an unfinished ritual. The final page has yet to be written, and the whispering from the well is growing louder.